Hello, hello, hello. Let me pull up the chat here. Ooh, actually. Outro screen. We're going to do one thing here. A second, apparently. Outro screen. Alright, I'm back. So now I can actually look and see the chat without turning my head around. So I have a new drink tonight. New drink tonight. I'll show off the bottle first here. Oop, wrong way. Orange Jameson. I've tried the different types of Jameson before. The coffee, the stout barrel aged, and the IPA barrel aged. Stout barrel aged, IPA barrel aged, both good. Coffee, that one should have been better than it was. I don't know what was going on with it. Just wasn't that great. This one is fine. I would say it's good in that it has a nice orange flavor to it, and it's not like a fake orange or medicinal orange, anything like that, but it's fine. I'm going to be using this in a cocktail tomorrow. Well, cocktail, mixed drink. Tomorrow with cream soda, because it's very orangey, so this is going to be kind of a orange creamsicle float type thing. What did you... Gee, thanks so much. Phone. But yeah, it's time to chat again about some board games. We'll see how far we get in today, because I can't see it. I can now. This stuff right here, we already talked about last week, because we have our first Breakbusters box here. This is the rest. This white box up here is the errata. That's going to be staying. It's a game that I need to try, so yeah, that's going to be staying in the collection. But let me get up here and pull down 3 long, big boxes. Let's talk about these games, because it's actually an interesting conversation with the one that we're going to start with on top here. Shadows of Brimstone. I have, in fact, played this game, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Honestly, I really would like to get more of it. The issue is I did a poor job of gluing the minis together, so now I really need to go back through and glue the minis together. Plus, it's been a while because, well, the minis fall apart. So this is one that I'm tempted to get rid of. Now, I can't. That's the issue, is I can't really, in the shape it's in, unless I were to sell it pretty cheap to somebody who's fine putting together all the minis, getting any residual glue from when I did originally off of it. But also, I really want to play this game. This was such a fun experience the first time, and it's Weird West. Weird West is a genre that I love that has very little that's good in it. I've tried to find Weird West books, and I mean, there's some out there. I'm sure there's some really good ones out there, but man, there have been some really bad ones that I've checked out. And a lot of the writing just feels... It feels like you're not getting a serious writer to write that story. And by serious, I don't mean like, oh, we're going to take this super seriously. I mean serious as in, okay, I'm an actual writer. It felt like to me, from what I've read in the Weird West genre, that there's a lot of people who just kind of, they like the idea of writing, they like the idea of the Weird West, so they decided to write something that was Weird West. We're going to stick that over on the keep pile. Or how long that's been there. Some garbage. Next up, we have one that I need to try. It's also not going to leave the collection because it is the type of game I like. So this is Flick of Faith by Awaken Realms Light. So Awaken Realms does a lot of the games that I really, well, two games that of theirs I've played, I really like them. Both of them are in my top 10. This is their light games. So let me flick around. You can kind of see the pieces here. This is a flicking game. So Flick of Faith, and you're basically flicking to get on certain islands, I think have majority, or hit certain locations. Comes with a neoprene mat. Looks like a lot of fun. I just haven't pulled it off the shelf yet. That's actually one that I probably could pull off the shelf pretty easily with a lot of the people I game with. Yeah, that's just decent. It's like, it's so orangey, but the oranginess almost kills any whiskey for it. It's just weird. Like, I feel like it should be better than it is, but the body of the whiskey is almost lacking. So the next one is another one that is not going to leave my collection. This is a grail game for me, one that I've been looking for a while, and it's a monster. Mechs versus Minions. So Mechs versus Minions is a board game from Riot Games. Riot Games is best known for League of Legends, though also Arcane, which if you haven't seen that on Netflix, it's phenomenal. And this is a board game that they made kind of set in that world. You play with mechs, you program out their actions, and yeah, you see what happens. And you're trying to fight off waves upon waves upon waves of minions. That's most of what's in this giant box here is minions. So many minions. But you play through different scenarios and it's different objectives each time. Looks like a lot of fun. One that's going to take some effort to sit down and learn to play. But also one, like I said, it's been one that I've been looking for a while. I found it at a solid price, so I grabbed it. Let's get these games back up because none of them are leaving. However, I am doing a tiny bit of rearranging so I can get box sizes, I don't know, make it look a little nicer. Finally, Flick of Faith at the end there. There we go. A little bit better height sort wise. Let's clear out pieces here of another shelf. Sushi Go cards. So let's start by talking about Awaken Realms. Awaken Realms makes huge games. Not always the neatest, not always the cleanest games, but games that really tell a story and really they feel like almost no other company's games. Maybe I would say probably Mythic Games is the closest, and they do a similar thing where they make really big games, but not always the cleanest, smoothest games. There are rough edges around it, and those rough edges really help you develop a story. And one of the first ones by them, I'm seeing if I can get off the remainder of this price sticker. I can't right now. I'll deal with it later. Is Lords of Hellas. This is an area control kind of Euro, not really Euro, but like action selection type game. It's not like a dice checker or anything like that. So it just feels different than a lot of other games. This is the one that's actually passed up Blood Rage for me in that I think I know I enjoy this one more just because there's more you can do. With Blood Rage, it's always kind of a race to points, and you're figuring out and building up a specific engine to get to those points. Whether you're doing a Loki strategy or really trying for combat, whatever it might be. Lords of Hellas gives you a number of different ways to win. You can control 2 of the large land areas, which will be made up of different smaller pieces that everybody's fighting over. You can control the locations of, I think, 5 different temples. You can kill 3 giant monsters. You can, you're building towers or monuments, statues throughout the game, and once one's built, that's kind of an end game trigger where then whoever is holding that at the end of 3 rounds, assuming none of the other conditions are met first, wins the game. It's just a lot of fun. It is really big, tons of cool minis. I left this box up here because that's just another box with more content, more monsters, more fun. I don't know that you'd actually need any more than just this base game, but I love this game. This is one I rarely play. I'd probably have to relearn the rules, though it'd be a quick refresher at that point. Nothing major. So, yeah, this is definitely staying. Now we come to one that I'm not sure if it stays or not. Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game by the Sadler brothers. When they were at Fantasy Flight. This is a classic kind of Warhammer type game. I wonder if they redid this or no. This looks different. I was going to say, I wonder if they redid this in something similar to, another one that's on the shelf. Heroes of Tyrannoth. And these 2 games, both by the Sadler brothers, I wonder if they are similar-ish. I am curious about both of them, but I'm not sure that I can keep both of them in my collection. An epic card game, or a card game of epic dungeon exploration, cooperative card game of questing and adventure. So I'm guessing there's differences, but how different are those two? Now I'm curious, so I'm going to pop over on my screen to Board Game Geek here, and I'm going to look up Heroes of Tyrannoth. Because that was the second of those two to come out. Re-implements Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game. So, well, I guess that kind of answers the question for me. I'm curious now. So, Heroes of Chernobyl is 1232. Warhammer is 617. 7.3 for both of them. 30 to 60 minutes. 1 to 4. Both of them are best with 4 players. Good to know. 30 to 60 minutes on both of them. Warhammer Quest, they say, is a little bit heavier of a game. 14 plus. 14 plus. The community says 10 plus for Heroes of Tyrannoth. 12 plus for Warhammer Quest. Well, I think that actually makes a decision for me here. Warhammer Quest, you stay. Here's the Tyrannoth. You're getting traded back to the game store that I got you from, without me having played you. I picked that one up because it was on Rolling Solos channel. Great channel for solo board games. But I don't think I'm ever going to get to that one, knowing that I have the other one up here. And this was before they started making it so you could more easily remove those price tags. So they're going to know that I'm trading back in a game that I bought from them. But who cares? They probably know that I do that anyways. That's kind of the fun, though, is I use store credit to get a game. So it's $17.99. I'm just curious to see. Yeah, that appears to be about what people are selling it for. Maybe a little bit more now. So who knows? Might cost a touch, or might be able to get that in store credit back, or $12 anyways in store credit. That's cool. That's great. You can get something else. Next up, we have Final Girl from Van Ryder Games. This one's also a really easy decision. This is not going anywhere. I have played this once. I loved it. It's a great solo horror game. You are the final girl or one of the final characters in a horror movie. You are trying to get other people out, all the while the killer is trying to track them down and kill them, trying to get you and kill you, and ramps up as time goes on. Simply a wonderful game. I'm actually going to set this off to the side here because right here, I don't think it's going to be its home when all is said and done. Now we go down a level, and I'm grabbing out two things because there's really only two different games on the shelf. We have Lord of the Rings, and this is the expansion, the Sauron expansion. So glad. Well, there's an insert, but cover was not held on as tightly as it should be. And the other one is Marvel United. Now, easy answer here. This stays. Marvel United is not going anywhere. In fact, I have a whole bunch more of it coming probably sooner rather than later. However, Lord of the Rings, is that going to stay? So the Sauron expansion, well, let's talk a little bit about the game. So the Lord of the Rings by Dr. Reiner Knizia is a cooperative game where you are trying to get the ring to Mordor. You are playing through the different locations in the Lord of the Rings, picking up different items, and you're basically advancing by playing out cards in certain ways. I believe you're looking for cards of the same color. You play out two, or you play down cards that match the color of a spot. I forget precisely how it is. It's been a while since I played it, but it's a really tough, very fun, cooperative game. Great artwork. The Sauron expansion allows somebody to play as Sauron. They have cards that they put into play, and that determines what Sauron does on his turn. It basically adds an element to the game, adds a one versus all mechanic. The Sauron expansion is fun, but while I'm going to be keeping the base game, this is getting culled because while it is fun, it requires somebody to know how to play that separate, different piece. That person is playing a different game from everybody else. And to me, I mean, that's fine, but it's kind of like how I almost got rid of Detective City of Angels before I realized it could be played solo, because I would have to be the one to do the chisel side of things. I'd be the one who would learn the game and then be the person who would, brain don't fail me now, be the person who would be kind of the clue giver. Everybody else would be the detectives. And what interests me so much about that game is being a detective myself. But knowing that I can play it solo now, I'm going to keep that around. Same with the Sauron expansion. If I were to play it, I'd be the person who is running Sauron. I'd be playing a different game than everybody else. And, well, I'm not opposed to that. And there's going to be one further along that has that in it, which I like. But it's also different because that one, anybody can play the one, and everybody else can play the all, and you can switch it up easily. Actually, a couple of those that I'm looking at it now. But they're easy to do that with. That means no one person is stuck in a certain position. Whereas Sauron expansion for Lord of the Rings, pretty sure we'd always have one person who is stuck in that position, and that probably would be me. So I'm going to get rid of that expansion. And that brings me to two more games on this shelf. One. Come on. And neither of these are leaving, at least until I get a chance to play them. This top one is Cthulhu Death May Die. This is by Rob Daviau and Eric Imling, two game designers who I really like. This is their take on Lovecraftian mythos, so different take than Fantasy Flight games. This one's done by Simon, and I think they're back to Simon now. And I missed the original Kickstarter for this, but that's okay. I was able to pick up the base box. I think this is going to be the type of game I love. One of the things that to me is really cool about this game, and that, I think everybody kind of talks about when they talk about the game, is that as you become more insane, you become better. You do things better, which is so very different from almost any other game, But it's a balance, because if you go completely insane, well, you're done. So, really cool idea for a game. I'm excited to see it. Next one, also come on. Oh, come on. Fit in there, game. Fit in the back in the shelf. This one based off an IP. I mean, I guess technically both were, though Lovecraftian mythos stuff is thankfully not that near Lovecraft stuff, because Lovecraft's writing is so hit or miss. But this one is based off of a video game, PlayStation exclusive video game. Just finally picked up, have not played the game yet. But Bloodborne. You're a hunter playing through some different unique campaigns. I mean, this is, again, the type of game that I like. But from what I know about Bloodborne is the campaign is pretty short. So Cthulhu Death May Die is scenario-based. This is campaign-based, but I think it's campaigns that are done in like 3 or 4 chapters versus something that is huge, something like Gloomhaven, which goes on and on and on. Don't take that as a complaint, because I mean, Gloomhaven is my number 1 game of all time. But I like the idea of I like a lot the idea of Bloodborne being the next game kind of that I play as a campaign game, just because if I can sit down 60 to 90 minutes and play through the campaign, say in like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, then like that's a good amount. I don't always want to have something like a 10-week Sleeping Gods campaign, though that was amazing. Which I realized I messed up a rule on that. Or something like when I did Pandemic Legacy, where those take a long time. Sometimes it's nice to have something shorter that's still a campaign, so that I can dive back in and into a story. And Bloodborne, that might be a really good one for that, actually. Alright, let's see if I can do this. So I'm going to continue a little bit longer because, well, this has been a half hour. And if you're wondering why I keep on touching my nose, I am most definitely kicking up dust off of some of these that haven't necessarily been moved in a little bit. Let's pour a little bit more whiskey. I'd actually probably go for something else, but I don't have anything else in this room. So, a little bit more orange whiskey. So this one here, pull it down off the shelf, actually is all of this plus all of this. Deep Madness from Dimension Games is a 1 to 6 player cooperative horror survival sort of game that, well, I need to play. But I think I own everything except for one of these boxes, which these are just epic monsters you can add into the mix, because who knows, maybe the game's not hard enough as it is. But Deep Madness game is a scenario-based pseudo-campaign style game where you are a rescue crew going down to a deep sea base. And something has happened there. You don't know what it is, so you go down, you dock, and all of a sudden, as you're trying to figure out what's going on, as you're trying to get life support back on, as you're trying to do all these different things, there are also monsters attacking you. You're trying to figure out a way to get back to the surface. It just is my type of game. And it's a 1 to 6 player game. It's actually one that I've thought about streaming, but it's 90 to 120 minutes, so possible that I could do it in a stream. And the reason that I've been most hesitant to do that, and it's one that I need to learn still. So it's a piece of it is the learning aspect, but also a piece of it is 1 to 6 player, but it probably plays best at 1, 2, 3, and 6. I wonder what. So this is going to be another BGG. Look up real quick here. Deep Madness. I bet you says best at 3 or 4. So people recommend it at 1, 2, best at 3 or 4, 5 is recommended, 6 is recommended, but not so much. But this game reminds me of something like the early 2000s, late 90s, or during the 90s horror films out there. I think it's, I'm trying to remember, is it The Abyss or The Sphere, Core? I mean, there's a whole bunch of these sort of 90s horror films that had monsters, had weird stuff going on, that are kind of the type that I enjoyed, especially at that time. So there's a bit of nostalgia factor to the idea of this game. And this is another one that Rolling Solo got me interested in. And yeah, it's sitting on the shelf waiting to be played, mainly because it feels like a beast to play solo. Though some of that was, it felt like a beast to play solo when I was starting to play solo games. Now that I'm doing that way more often, I suspect this is going to be easier. So, like I said, all of this shelf, plus all of that, is Deep Madness. That gets us to move on to Nice Games, as well as Paradox Interactive, for Vampire the Masquerade Heritage. This is a legacy game in the world of Vampire the Masquerade. I picked it up because of watching a couple playthroughs that were done on the Glory Hound channel. One of them, at least, is publicly available there. And the second one might be only available via their Patreon. But phenomenal. Well, not phenomenal. It's a different looking game than I'm normally playing in terms of a legacy game. It has story, but it's interesting because one of the cool things about Vampire the Masquerade, and I really want to get my hands on Vampire the Masquerade chapters. I wonder if anybody is selling their pledge for that. I shouldn't be looking all of this up right now as we go. But that is a big box game that is supposed to be coming this year. Storytelling, RPG, campaign, up to 4 players. Most people prefer it at 1 or 2. There is, nothing nothing available for it. And some of that is it hasn't actually delivered yet. But I really want to get my hands on that one because I think I'm going to like that one even more than I like this. This one, though, I don't want to get rid of because it's a legacy game. And I have this thing with legacy games and with just the whole concept of them that really interests me. And this one seems fairly unique because as you play, you swap out maps, or tracks. So you might have your main map that maybe will change as you play through the years. But then as you do that, you'll move a scoring track. And that's just out of the game now, where you were trying to be the best at something, and it'll be a new scoring track in its place. It says Carpe Noctem. Very nice. Very nice. Good job, game. So this one is staying, at least for now. Like I said, it is a campaign game where it goes from 1306 to 1997 that I really want to play. The trick is it's not a solo game, so makes it a little bit tougher. A little bit tougher. May have to move the chair here in a second. This one is a bit tricky to tilt up. Western Legends. Another game I actually haven't played, but it's on the list. And there's actually an expansion in this box too, which is some of the reasons why it doesn't fit so well. One, because Colossal had a decent sale on it for Black Friday. But two, this is it's a Western game. I like Western as an idea and a genre for games. Like we just saw Shadows of Brimstone not that long ago. That one has the Weird West going for it. This one does not, but this is a sandbox Western game. You play as your character and you can change from a hero to a villain. You could decide just to make your living off of delivering cattle, but who knows, somebody may try and rustle those cattle. So it's a game that I really need to try, and it's a game that's not going to leave the collection yet just because it is a Western genre, and it's one that I've been interested in for quite a while. So I just need it to get to the table for me to see if it's going to be a game for me. I suspect it is, but right now I just need to get it to the table. Actually, the same with the other two games in the queue. So, this section might have less leaving. And I think I actually mentioned this last time, but I curate what's behind me. So by doing that, by intentionally putting certain games, certain more popular, more interesting looking games behind me, it means that they're less likely to be ones that I get rid of. Plus, I think it was January, or maybe early February. So, no, it must have been January. January, I took a whole bunch of games into my local game store for trade. And when I say a whole bunch, I think it was 3 paper bags full. 3 Target paper bags full, plus a couple extra games. So I already kind of did this process, but I did it with just looking around at things. This is going game by game. And the next game is Black Rose War from Ares Games and Ludus Magnus. Black Rose War is a game, well, one that I haven't played, but it's a game where you're programming out what you want to do. You're doing a little bit of deck building as you go, and you are basically fighting other mages to be kind of the lead of the Black Rose Lodge. And you can blow up rooms, summon things. It sounds like a ton of fun. Some of the reason it hasn't hit the table yet is that, well, it's challenging to learn. I've spent some time trying to learn it, not a ton, but yeah, it's a complaint I've heard about the game. It's challenging to learn, and it feels, well, I don't think it's one where there's necessarily a ton of tutorials or aids for playing it, though I should check on Board Game Geek again. I'm not going to do it right now because that'd be looking for a file to download that maybe a revised rulebook or a fan-made rulebook that makes it easier to learn. And I have some friends who are very much on board with, all right, let's play it, wing it, that sort of thing. Others less so. So it's a little bit group dependent on whether or not I could play it, and I'd have to spend the time learning it ahead of time. And then we have Champions of Hara. Champions of Hara it's interesting. It's another one that this one I picked up because of the Glory Hound YouTube channel. So I guess second one for that, as well as I've had two for rolling solo. And this one, it has like an adventure feel to it. And apparently you play in a couple of different ways. For it, there's kind of a more head-to-head competitive mode where you're trying to get points, things like that. And then there's a more, once one person wins, then you have a kind of a second half to the game, but a whole new game, if I understood correctly, where you're playing kind of a cooperative adventure, all of you working together to try and kind of complete that character who won the first time, their story. Which is just really cool concept from Greenbrier Games. I need to get this one to the table. I think this one would be easier. And there's really cool characters in it. I recommend checking out the Glory Hound playthrough for this. It might cause you to buy it, but just to hear them talk about the different characters in this game. I shifted over slightly so that I can more easily put these all back on the shelf. Yeah, that's right. None of these are leaving. Mainly because I have to play them. I could honestly see Black Rose War leaving, but not until I've played it, and I'm not sure when that's going to be. I need to find a dedicated time to learn, teach, and play that. Next up, down here we have, oh wait, that's just going to slide out. Don't need to move the chair at all. 3 more games. I actually think one of these is going to be leaving collection. That's going to be the one that I'm going to flip up here. It's one of them that I've played. I've played 2 out of 3. But First Martians. First Martians is kind of the sequel to Robinson Crusoe. But it has some campaign elements, some cool things like that. And why is it leaving then? Why is it leaving? I mean, Robinson Crusoe is a really well rated game. If you look it up, First Martians, not so much. First Martians, when it first came out, had some issues. So, Robinson Crusoe has a shoddy rulebook. So does First Martians. Robinson Crusoe uses a deck of cards to kind of keep track of your events. First Martian does not. It uses I think it's a website for it. Man, I'm starting to talk myself into keeping this game, actually. And the website or app was rough to start out with, and people didn't love that. There were fan-submitted kind of events that could happen, which, again, are rough because they're fan-submitted, so they weren't balanced and play-tested as well as they should be. Combine that with a rough rulebook, a lot of people just didn't enjoy it as much. Like, the concept is cool, and I'm going to pull up the cover here. So, like, you have your board and everything, but this is what's making it so tempting. It's like a mini campaign, almost like a four-part campaign, which I love my campaign games. But at the same time, I've had this for quite a while. It isn't punched. Honestly, I do not know what to do on this one. So, part of me thinks where I'm at two minds on this one is I don't think this would be hard to get back. If and when I'm ready to play it, I can get it back and play it. And there's Campaign 1 and Campaign 2. But at the same time, this is not one that has a ton of trade value because, like I said, it wasn't loved. So, but the thing is, if I want it back, I can get it back. It's going in the trade pile. Now we're going to talk about two other games here. Xenoshift Onslaught. If you saw today's article, this is my #1 sci-fi themed game. This is Starship Troopers, the board game, and it's a deck building game. I'll let you hazard a guess whether or not this one is leaving. It's most certainly not. This is a really fun cooperative game, and it does deck building things in a way that I don't necessarily see a ton of deck building games do. So there are two main differences, and I think both of them are really worth talking about. So the first one is every turn you get money. So that means you're never short on money. You have the money that you draw in your hand, but also you have whatever money. So like there are 3 different waves. So wave 1, for those 3 rounds, you get an extra $1 every time. Well, that's okay because, I mean, some of the gear you can buy costs more, but $1 means that I think you're halfway to a ranger. I think they cost 2. But if you don't have enough to buy a ranger at 2, there's going to be a $1 cost item still available. You hit wave 2, and those 3 rounds, you get $3. You hit wave 3, you get $6. And the unit costs increase accordingly. So you can always buy characters. But the other thing that I love, and what I really love about this game, and it's so old that it says Cool Mini or not Come or Simon on it. Simon. They changed it for a short period of time to Come On and Simon, and I just have to get back in the habit. But I can buy a troop. I might have 4 troops in my hand. I can only play down 4 to my defensive row, but you might have none and just have like 5 weapons plus your money. So I can buy a troop and put 2 of my troops in your row. You can equip your weapons to 2 of them, and then you can equip weapons to 2 of mine. Those 2 troops I put in your side of the defense, because this is basically a tower defense game, those go into your deck of cards. Those guns or armor that you gave my guys, those go into mine. So it's very cooperative in what you do and how you work together for it. All right. Next we have another one. This one isn't going to be leaving, though I wonder how long it will stay. We have Journey, Wrath of the Demons. This is from Edge and Marrow Productions. I think this is a 2-4. So I'm going to have to find somebody to play it with. But this is another game that I keep on seeing on sale, which is some of the reason I picked it up. It was on sale. This cover looks really cool. It's a cooperative game, has some cool minis in it. Costs, I think when I bought it, it was like 20 some bucks. So for 21 finely detailed minis, I was basically paying $1 a mini, which is good price for minis. But I don't know a ton about the game. Like I said, I think it's cooperative. And that's kind of where my knowledge ends on it. And this would be one that would be a candidate for leaving were it not one that I had just picked up. This is probably the candidate for, okay, I'm going through this again in 2023. Now, I haven't played it. It might be on the chopping block. But for now, it's going to stay. Ooh. And Vampire the Masquerade Heritage can fit on top of that stack now, which means Final Girl slots in nicely right there. So, I'm down to 5 games, I guess, technically, to talk about. 2 of them are up on top. I will not be pulling them down because they are huge. Well, maybe I'll pull down one box. But let's talk about these 3 games. We have Dragonfire first here, which is a Shadowrun deck building game just with Dungeons and Dragons theme on it. Can be played solo, which is why I picked it up. Though it says 2 to 6 players, but I'm pretty sure you can play it solo. Or there are ways to play it solo. So now I'm curious on that, because that actually might make a decision here for me. I think you just play 2-handed solo, which is no problem for me. I have played it. Yeah, I've played it at 2. It's fun. It's actually recommended at 4. But I think you can play it 2-handed, 3-handed, 4-handed solo. Not that difficult to do. You can't play it true solo. I know that much. But Actually, that's an interesting one. So I have Shadowrun. Do I prefer Shadowrun or the D&D theme? Cyberpunk versus dragons. Huh. Intriguing. I am actually curious because it should say, yeah, re-implement Shadowrun Crossfire. It's a 7.2, 1368 overall, 7.2, 960 overall. That just comes from different number of ratings. This has a bigger player count, but Shadowrun is meant to be played at 1, though it's generally not best at 1. Most people like it at 4. Eesh. This one's an interesting decision. I do like the fact the game itself says 2 to 6 players, community says 1 to 5. I love how board games get weird player counts based off of either house rules. It's like one player. This game does not support 1 player according to the box, but I also know that it does according to Board Game Geek. So while I think about that one, let's talk about Zona, the Secret of Chernobyl. This does, I know, have a 1-player version for it. I need to play this one. I kind of played this one at Gen Con in 2019, and it was an amazing experience. So much so that I got my local game store to pick it up, and I picked up a copy. I think they bought 3 and maybe 4. I bought 1. A buddy who played it at Gen Con bought another, and there's been a 3rd one sitting on the shelf for a while. May or may not still be there. Might be gone now. Good. I'm making the decision on Dragonfire. I want to try this one. This is solo in or group. I don't know. Well, maybe I'll just put it out there. So I've been doing... let me complete a full thought here. I've been playing on and off sporadically, kind of a board game club type thing, where we generally have between 4 and 6 of us. I'll generally put up a poll for the game that we're going to play, as well as then the date for it, to see how many people we can get, and that kind of determines some things. That is how I got the Reckoners played, which was amazing. I might change it up for this one. So, like I said, I think we have up to 6, which means Dragonfire is certainly on the table. I might, when I send out the next invite, which I should do soon, we haven't done it for a few months at this point, I should just be like, alright, we're going to play Dragonfire. Who wants it? See what happens. I think in some ways that's maybe the better way to do it. Maybe that's going to be the change that I make to it that makes it a little bit easier on myself. Is I pick the game, or anybody else who's hosting or picking out the game, is pick the game and then talk a little bit about it, and then have everybody pick what date works best if they're interested. Yeah, I kind of like that idea. So I'm going to keep that. Maybe that will be the next one. Though there's a number of them, because Deep Madness I'd love to do that with too. Then finally, we have Descent 2nd Edition. This is the core box for Descent. I got this relatively cheap. I forget how much it was at the beginning of COVID. I had grand intentions of painting the minis. I wanted to kind of pick up a hobby during COVID of painting. I have stuff for painting. I have painted a few different things, but not a ton. We're getting to warm temperatures here in Minnesota. So, actually, maybe that is something that I'll stream. Maybe that might be a fun thing of hang out, chat, and watch me fumble through painting. I know Studio Lanniston and Nosferatu Clown, who both hop onto the streams from time to time, they do more painting. So maybe it'd be a fun thing of make it a get-together. Sort of hang out, watch me paint poorly. They can paint really well. And just enjoy sometimes chatting about board games. This one I want to keep just because I want to use this as a basis point for painting minis so that I can eventually get good enough to paint the Marvel United minis. I don't think that's going to take too long. I really like the fact that those are chibi figures. That's going to make it easier for me to paint. But I did say there were 2 games up above, and I can grab a tiny bit of one of them. So, the one that is most definitely sticking around is Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven is not going anywhere. And Studio Lanniston has been lurking all night. Or he heard me say his name and just signed in. One of the two. But, so one's Gloomhaven. That is most definitely not going anywhere. The other one is fairly new. And I actually got this and got some of the specific things based off of a recommendation from Studio Lanniston. Is Joan of Arc. Time of Legends Joan of Arc. And this is the smallest piece of Joan of Arc that I have to show off. Also the only one that's still in shrink, which means that everything reflects off of it. But Joan of Arc is... I think Joan of Arc is just a 2-player game. And it's basically going through kind of the battles and legends of Joan of Arc, but there's a whole lot more to it than that. It's just not just battles. Though each time you're playing a scenario, but there are still villagers, there are still other people generally you can interact with. Plus, it has the additional name of Time of Legends, and that refers to the fact that, during the history of that time, they would assume that, some scenarios are 3 or 4 players. Very nice. I'm not sure if that makes it easier or harder to get played, but either way, it is one that I still need to get played. But the Time of Legends refers to the fact that there are historical accounts in air quotes, of people who talk about we saw a dragon. Well, who knows what they actually saw, but historically it is noted that they saw a dragon or there were werewolves, things like that. And so all of that history of the time gets folded into the game. So some of it's all of it's very historical, but not all of it is necessarily as we know history to be. And yeah, like I said, I have 2 boxes, the main box for Joan of Arc and the Reliquary box that are up there. Those 2 are massive. And then I have the Ars Nova, 1, and those are all sitting on top of Gloomhaven. So I'm not going to pull down Gloomhaven. I really wouldn't want to anyways, because again, Gloomhaven is massive as well. But Gloomhaven's not going to go anywhere either. Even though I've beaten Gloomhaven, it's one... Well, I could just say it's one. It's my top game of all time. It's the number 1 game on Board Game Geek, and that doesn't influence my rankings of it. It is my number 1 game easily. So, yeah, it's not going to go anywhere. It's one that I actually started messing around with the digital version of. I did not necessarily pick the best team build, and I'm still kind of getting used to some pieces of it. But it's a really fun game with amazing card combos, amazing decision space for how you play the cards. But it's also a massive campaign game. I think we did a 3-player campaign that was probably about 200 hours, including setups and teardowns and stuff like that, of time. So my $120 investment plus getting a wooden insert for Christmas for it was... So let's just say that totaled to be $200. For me, that was $1 an hour cost. But divided amongst 3, it's one of the best investments I've made in terms of board games for sure, but just in terms of something like a massive time investment. I think the only thing I would put up there, there are a couple other things that I would put up there. I was going to say the only, but I think there's 2 things. I think all the MCU stuff, the amount of time that I've put into watching that, I think has been, like, that time investment is very high, but very worth it. And I think watching all of Psych is up there with it, but I'm not sure either of those really have the value that Gloomhaven does. But with that, I'm done with my orange Jameson, and I want to thank you all for watching. Now, I'm not going to guarantee that I'm going to do this every Monday, but I do think that I'm going to try and do it more Mondays than not, just to get through my whole collection here. And, well, in some ways, just to set aside games that I'm going to be getting rid of or trading away, because I know that I think tomorrow Canvas and Canvas Reflections, the expansion, are showing up from Kickstarter. I know that Marvel United X-Men, all of that stuff is not too far away. I think starting this week, so there's even a chance it will show up this week. Super Fantasy Brawl Round 2, all of that stuff is starting to ship out. I'm not sure if there's anything else quite as imminent. Well, I have a stack of games on the floor, Sea of Legends and Isle of Cats, the big box, that I need to get sorted out. So I need to continue making my way through all of this so that I can continue to free up shelf space. So thank you so much for watching. If you're watching after the fact, let me know. What do you think? What do you think were there any games that I probably should have gotten rid of? Do you have thoughts on Journey Wrath of the Demons? Because that's probably the closest to the chopping block at this point in time. Oh, I just realized I skipped a whole shelf directly behind me. Quick and short of it is it has the Night Cage on it. Night Cage is not going anywhere. I love that as a 4-player horror game. Very abstract, but really nice tension. And then Folklore the Affliction. I have the base game and both big box expansions. That one I maybe should just be getting rid of both big box expansions. I can always get them back later if I want. I'm not going to. Spoilers. It's a very much an RPG campaign game. So it's the type of game that I really love, even if I know I'm not really going to get to play it, or I'm going to have to work hard to get to play it. But it's one that I wouldn't mind streaming for the channel. So now that I've wrapped that up, we are up to here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy this content, please video a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. Like I was saying, let me know what game you think I should keep, maybe something else I should get rid of. There are a bunch of other links where you can find other stuff that I do, including 10-Minute Marvel Podcast. Like I said, Marvel is a great investment of my time. Whether or not it actually is, it's one that I enjoy so much. And